And that's interesting because coming up, it's going to disappear in a couple days where you're not even going to be able to see it. And what's interesting is Jacob even says that's going to be one of the final signs. And Christ says, "Behold, I come quickly," referring to that star. So it is a sign that
We can see it?
you can see Regulus. You can see it right now. Yeah, you'll be able to see it for a few more days.
How close is it to the moon?
Actually, a couple nights ago, the moon actually hid Regulus. Regulus went behind the moon, which was another great sign that happened a couple nights ago. And it's been doing strange things. When I say strange things, I mean things astronomically it normally doesn't do. So you can see it for about the next maybe two nights, and then you're not going to see it. Because it has a whole different orbit, where its helical horizon changes.
What's going on?
Sorry about that.
No.
That was the vision of the.
No, I had a sky view
That was the spirit.
and I can
part.
find the stars. Yeah.
Yeah, Regulus.
Yeah.
The spirit
Is that
is
when
going back
Regulus
to God still.
disappears totally? Because you say it could explode.
Regulus usually disappears every year right around the vernal equinox, which is, autumnal equinox, which is coming up
Yeah.
in 2 days. That's a whole other interesting thing is the sun pattern changes. It's actually due east and due west on that day. So that's coming up in a couple days.
But Regulus is known as the King Star.
Yes.
The
Right,
King
yeah.
Star, it's in the constellation of the Lion,
Yeah.
Ariel. It's also known as Shiloh.
Shadow, yeah.
In Akkadian, it's known as Sharu, basically same word.
Wow.
It refers to a scepter, the royal scepter,
Mm.
because it's at the actual lion's paws between his feet.
Wow.
Shadow
check it
between
out.
his feet. So these are interesting signs that are showing right now. So we know we're in the season. There's no doubt about it.
Absolutely, yeah.
No doubt we're in the
Wow,
season.
100%.
And then isn't there like some things happening on the sun, like flares or something?
Yeah, there's been all kind of things happening in the last month with the sun. There's been coronal emissions, been solar flares.
Solar flares.
There was a day, a lot of people were having problems with their cell phone last week, and they said that was because of the transmissions with the solar flares. A lot of things are happening. So we're in the actual season. I think it's going to be interesting what's going to happen with the world global scene over the next couple of days, because from Trump's polemics and rhetoric in the United Nations, it seems like
That was pretty strong. Right?
pretty strong.
Yeah. Wow.
The people are going nuts.
They're talking about absolute destruction, and then I think it was
Wiping out North Korea.
Ambassador Daley said it won't exist anymore because North Korea won't exist anymore.
Oh my gosh, they're saying that?
Yeah, so it's interesting how the rhetoric has changed.
You didn't listen to that today?
I didn't hear that today, no. I wasn't
As
listening.
a member of this group, you were required to listen to every speech.
Yeah, we have
And
to.
Yahoo was, of course. Oh, I'm kidding.
Well, every day there's like something going on, especially the cataclysmic
Yeah.
events, the hurricanes. Like, and we were watching, it's not just like, in this, it's all over the world. Like, there's hurricanes and flooding, like I was surprised, and like other
What is it
countries.
happening?
And
China,
fires.
You mean there's
Bangladesh,
wars and
everywhere.
rumors of
Africa's
wars?
having massive
Earthquakes in
about
diverse places.
And the fires.
It's like the Bible says.
And everyone says they've never seen this before, like the fires, 74 fires out west, never seen. And in
Now
Australia
there's
there's fires too.
lights emanating from Los Angeles over the city.
Very
And
scary.
usually when tectonic plates shift, the rocks actually can cause light.
Wow.
Rocks can actually cause light,
Oh,
emit light,
really?
and they shoot up into the sky. And usually between, I would say 3 days to a week after those lights are emitted, there's an earthquake. New Zealand reported it when they had that major earthquake.
So did Mexico.
So did Mexico.
Oh no.
So that explains
How
the
many days
line.
after those lights does it
I
happen?
think it was
It was a couple
a
days.
couple of days. And these underground testings can change the tectonic plates. And you detonate a device.
The frac drilling
Frac drilling's doing it.
is
The
changing
fracking.
the cushion between.
Droughts. Floods and droughts can do it.
Plus the electromagnetic waves. When you start playing with the tectonic plates, then you have electromagnetic waves being emitted through Archimedes spirals hydrogen gas from the sun, and then planets flying around our solar system, changing magnetic field.
But what about HARP? Did that happen? You know, 'cause there's been a lot of people talking about like these hurricanes and stuff were basically caused.
People reporting that the Bush brothers started the hurricane in Florida to get Bush elected with HARP technology from the
Yeah.
naval
Well,
ships.
The military says that by 2025, they will be in total control of the weather. This is what they have declared.
Wonderful.
There's a law in the United Nations that since the late 70s that forbids Russia and the United States and anyone else that
Yes.
possesses HARP technology to use the weather as a weapon.
Yeah.
We've politicized the weather.
Yeah,
It's
true.
Republican weather and Democrat weather, depending upon who the president may be.
Yeah,
Ooh.
yeah,
That's
And then
it.
the Hadron Collider, CERN,
Oh, God,
Oh.
yes.
oh yeah.
What can you say about that?
Yeah.
well, it's interesting because what they say they're doing and what they're actually doing, there's a discrepancy there.
They don't mean our good.
Maybe you could mention the tunnel. Just
Yeah,
to
those
give an
are
That
idea.
was the most bizarre thing I ever saw. They opened a tunnel
Oh
in
man,
Switzerland. What? I'm not sure when they did it. About 6 months ago or so.
a little longer.
And it's the Goddard Tunnel, and the festivities, which was, you know, like world rulers. Merkel was there, the president of France, president of Switzerland, and it was totally demonic.
Demonic 100%.
That whole thing, the whole dance numbers and stuff. They had people dressed up as demons. They had other people dressed up as fallen angels, doing all this, and the program just kept going on and on and on.
Really bizarre.
And you know, it's and then they had a big screen and they showed the portal at CERN being televised up there. So there's a connection between these two
It's too
things. But the thing is that the secret government is not, they're not keeping it secret anymore. You know,
No.
they're wide open, and that, and with the Vatican searching, like, the Pope has made a couple really interesting statements about, he wanted to be able to baptize aliens. He said, we're gonna be,
Oh yes,
we're gonna be
Oh, he said
visited
that.
soon. He
yes.
has
He was
said
here.
some of the most bizarre things, and I
Yes.
hear people talk, oh, Pope Francis, he's so wonderful. He talked about Jesus, failed at his mission because he went to the cross.
Oh my
And then
goodness.
another thing, he was preaching all these nice things about Christ, about him dying on the cross for our sin, but he was only a man. You
Yes.
know?
Oh, wow.
God,
Only
this
a
guy, if
man.
he's not the false prophet, I don't know
Yeah.
what he. but-
Well, he also said that it's dangerous to have a personal relationship with
Yes.
Christ
Yeah.
apart from
the
the
church,
mother church,
Mother Church.
the Vatican.
And that's the whole thing with all these groups and a lot of these evangelicals that are going there and reuniting with the Catholic Church, because it's not coexistence, it is kissing the ring of the
It
Pope.
is the formation of the ecumenical church. But the other thing that is really interesting is the head of the astronomical setup the Vatican has,
Yeah.
which they own the most sophisticated telescope
Oh,
on
the one
Earth.
out in Arizona?
Yeah, and it's
What they call
and the name of the name of that is called Lucifer.
Yeah.
I mean, go figure, you know. And the head of that whole thing is a Jesuit
Yeah.
who, I mean,
It's
he's
owned by the
freak,
Catholic Church.
yeah, he's
sitting
freaked
over a
out
portal.
about aliens and
Yeah.
baptizing aliens and well, they actually believe that an alien is coming to save the world.
Yeah.
Well, it's
AKA
possible that
demon.
it's possible since we've been told that as it was in the days of Noah,
Yeah,
so shall it be in the days of the coming of the Son of Man. And my wife and I have discussed a couple of times the possibility that that Nephilim, you know, if God would allow it, Nephilim could be born again. And they may be Nephilim now, I don't know.
Born again.
But they're not capable of spectacular acts. But it could be that before the time of Christ comes, in the beginning of sorrows,
Yeah.
there would be people exhibiting
Yeah.
superhero type of behavior like we see in Marvel comics. And right now, Marvel can't make movies fast enough.
Yeah.
And all these movies come directly from the comic books, and the comic books get their themes from Greek mythology.
I wanna hear something weird. One of
Born
the
again.
artists
Born again.
from Marvel, this guy by the
Born
name of
again.
Greg Capullo.
And you.
Yeah.
His mom and him used to come to one of our Bible studies in Schenectady
Yeah.
when he was a teenager. The kid had a really talented card. If you see some of his artwork, it's fantastic, but he's deeply involved in that. He does whole comic books. My son pointed out to me, didn't we know this Greg Capullo? And I said, yeah, that's him. Yeah.
And he's involved with Marvel.
Yeah, he's involved. He's one of their main artists right now.
Russell Duquette was one of their colors. He was trying to break into the art department, but they would only let him color. There are
Yeah.
people that color the comics full time.
Yeah.
You know, they're quite serious about that.
They color with crayons.
No. If you look at Disney, Disney's another one. That so much of what we see that's creative, that takes producers and directors and all this stuff, so much of it is social engineering.
Mhm.
There is an agenda within the plot of the movie to maybe advance a cause or promote certain people to our culture. And so many movies have to do with vampires and the raising of the dead and zombies.
Yeah.
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 Zombies is a big deal, you know? I mean, very big. When you see Brad Pitt at one time was the highest paid actor and male actor in Hollywood. Same year he did a zombie flick. I thought, what's he losing his mind, making a zombie flick? But
What's the significance of
these things, you know, Satan's precognition that what he knows ahead of time about the plan of God, of course, he will not stand idly by. Whatever leeway he's allowed, and whatever sway his fallen angels have in an area, if they don't leave their first estate, like for instance, we live near Dundalk here in Maryland, and Dundalk was a hideout during the War of 1812 and the Revolutionary War for pirates. I'm from Boston. Boston's North Shore had many pirates that were given a license from the colonial government to assist in the colonial army of the United States. In return, they could keep things that they fell upon in battle, and also have their crimes against humanity expunged.
Wow, that's crazy. Watch.
Mm.
And what do we see when we look at pirates? The spirit of murder. You see, take the 10 Commandments and you look at how many of the 10 Commandments pirates would break. And I've been in San Diego recently, and I was surprised by the number of outlaw motorcycle gangs and Mexican gangs that are present. Just walking through a place, an eating venue, and see how many spirits you encounter. With some of the Mexican native religions, the art is in some of the shops.
Yeah, it's sick.
The spirit of murder, the spirit of stealing. If these spirits haven't been commanded into Tartarus, as we see happened at the caves of the Gathering, the time of Noah was marked. The culture was controlled to a certain degree by demon-possessed peoples, and I think that in our day and age, we are seeing demon-possessed peoples in public life,
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I think there's a lot of demon worship in Washington D.C.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
and members of the Senate, especially, and the Congress, who are involved with evil.
Spirit cooking.
Yeah. You got
Yes,
that.
definitely. So we don't know. To us, it seems far-fetched. But then when you run into evil, when you see evil, either on a grand scale, or you meet a liar,
Yeah.
and the whole criminal, the whole critical and murderous persons of all these persons of the earth are involved with either crimes against humanity and militarily or politically, or crimes in the street that make it impossible for a normal, humble person to get where they're going. You know, Israel talks about traveling on the highways or on the main roads, and how that was an issue in that day.
Yeah.
We in the time of sorrows, which Edwin has talked about it. You know, the gestation period of a pregnancy is 9 months. Being of sorrows points to pregnancy. There's going to be, leading up to everything, a 9-month period of the beginning of sorrows, and I think the church will get a preview. We'll get a preview of what people in the tribulation will be dealing with.
Mm.
We'll get a small dose, and that could be right now. That could be right now. And here's a point that